Dear friends, in this video, I will show you a peek inside to my Blunder Check course. I will show you how I am preparing my puzzles, how I'm modifying the real world positions to make them as instructive and as valuable as possible. The intent of the teacher is having a big role when it comes to instruction, and the level of the student is everything. That is the biggest determinant of whether learning has taken place. It's black to play in this position. How do you recapture this queen? What is the correct way and why? That's the key question. Folks, the best move for black is g takes f5. Why? Because this gives the escape square for the black king so you don't get mated on the next turn. If you take back with e-pawn, which is a blunder, you allow bishop f3 and you get mated. This is a simple blunder check puzzle which involves you check whether your opponent can check you if you make that move. Right? In terms of the hierarchy, we have to make sure that we don't give a devastating check to our opponents as a result of our moves. But to my mind, this puzzle is not completely clean because I can imagine many people would refuse this move not because they see the checkmate, but because they see the pawn on d5 was getting loose. If black takes on f5 with this guy, right, they will refuse this move because, hey, I'm losing the pawn on d5. You can find the right move for the wrong reason in chess. That's how you get lucky. That's my definition of a luck in chess. If you make the right move for a completely wrong thought process, then you get lucky. So I have to prevent this from happening. That's why I modified this puzzle to reach this position. Okay? Same question. How should black recapture the white queen? In this case, the correct answer is g takes f5 because this allows the flat square for the king and the position is simply a draw. Despite having an extra bishop, white cannot win this position because black has 3 pawns for the piece plus 3 connected pass pawns in this case. Why this position is cleaner than the first one? Because you cannot go wrong by simply saying e takes f5 is wrong because I'm losing the pawn on d5, right? So what we did in this puzzle by removing the pawn from d5 is we reduced the extraneous cognitive load. The cognitive load or complexity that doesn't contribute to what I'm testing. What I'm testing you in this puzzle is whether you can see your king as running short of squares. Right? You should see it's already a very restricted piece in this position, and you should see the opponent's checks as a result of your moves. I want you to direct your attention to this crucial question of, am I allowing a devastating check to the opponent? And that's why I believe this puzzle with the pawn on d4 is cleaner than the puzzle when the pawn is on d5, because many players would start to see this pawn on d5 as a very relevant factor in this puzzle, which then lead them to look at the wrong directions. Now I'll show you 3 very instructive puzzles to highlight my point. I love these puzzles, by the way, folks, and I hope you will like them too. White took the pawn on d5, okay? The question is, can black recapture the pawn on d5 in this case? Black has 2 minor pieces for the rook. Ideally, we would like to grab the pawn on d5. But you have to go through this process of blunder checking. What are you seeing here, folks? What is the first thing that you noticed in terms of the blunder check process? You should visualize the first thing. No matter how you recapture that pawn, you're allowing a pawn fork. Is that correct? Because pawn forks arise when 2 pieces are lined up side by side with 1 file separating them. So whenever your move is creating such an alignment, you have to be very careful to check for pawn fork blunders. So that's the first signal that a strong player sees instantly from this position, that one of these moves could be a blunder because of the resulting pawn fork. But I want you to go a little bit deeper. That's why this puzzle is a little bit more complex, right? Go a little bit deeper. visualize the resulting position and try to find a counter-attacking move that saves the piece with tempo. Okay? That's my final prompt to you. You will invite this pawn fork, but at that moment, you will have a resource, a beautiful resource to save one of your pieces with this counter-attack. Okay? And ask yourself, what is the drawback of the pawn move e4? e4 will give you a particular square on the board that you can use for one of your pieces. You're a great player if you calculated the entire sequence. Bishop takes d5. It looks like that's a blunder because you invite the pawn fork e4. And strong players see a little bit deeper and they see the move knight d4. That was my point, that you save one of your pieces with this counter-attack. Have you seen knight e2 fork, folks? Knight e2 is a devastating fork threat. Thus, white has no time to take your bishop on d5. You'll be having two minor pieces for the rook, followed by c5, and black is having a completely winning advantage. What was wrong with the alternative queen takes d5? Well, this is a blunder because after e4, you have no more the same trick of knight d4 followed by this, because they will then capture your queen on d5. And in the resulting position, you'll be down an exchange. Can you visualize it, folks? Knight d4, take on d5, knight e2 check. Doesn't matter. White simply takes your knight and achieves a winning advantage. After queen takes d5, notice the queen cannot stay on this diagonal after the move e4. That will be a very relevant theme in the next puzzle I will show you guys. In this case, this little tactic works for white. So this was a clean puzzle because only had a single solution. Bishop takes d5. It involved you go a little bit deeper with the moves that look to be blunders at first sight and see the alignments that allow a knight fork. Now, I will show you this position that is not clean because it has two different solutions. Black to play in this position, folks. Please, first of all, start with the first idea. Bishop takes d5. Does it work for black? Yes, it does, because the queen and the king are still on the same position and knight d4 saves the piece with this fork threat and black is completely winning this position. But what makes this position less clean is it also allows the secondary solution of queen takes d5, because after e4, you tell me the best move for black. How does black win this position? And you're a great player again, folks. If you found the move queen c6, your queen can safely stay on this diagonal and you're disallowing the move e takes f5 because that will allow a checkmate in one. So what this means is that we have two different solutions, each involving a different tactic to save the piece as a result against the pawn fork, right? But if I ask you this question in the Blunder Check course, you will get confused, right? I want ideally only one and clean solutions from my puzzles. So I modified this puzzle to reach this next puzzle, folks. C takes d5, black to play. What has changed? It looks like the same position. And you will tell me right now. Please, is it queen takes d5 or bishop takes d5? Or maybe both of these moves is a blunder. And you will tell me by stopping the video right now. Folks, first of all, it's a very important thing to realize the queen is no longer on c1, which means the same knight fork trick no longer works, which means bishop takes d5 is a blunder because after e4, we have no way to parry this pawn fork. Knight d4 doesn't create this huge threat and white can simply take the bishop on d5. White has an extra exchange. But queen takes d5 is working for black for the same reason, right? After e4, the only winning move is queen c6 because that's the only safe square for the queen to remain on this diagonal and disallow the move e takes f5. On the next turn, your knight is heading this beautiful d4 outpost and black is completely winning in this position. Can you see what kind of a process has taken place as a teacher, as an author, for me to clarify the first puzzle, the previous puzzle let's show you? We want ideally only one clean solutions when we are creating our puzzles. Now I will show you two final positions and I will give you the next one as a homework, okay? I saw this position while I was looking at beginner games, online beginner games. The white player in this position was having a better position because of better pieces. He tunnel vision and he played the move e5, which is a blunder. White was only focusing on the d-file pressure. White was only focusing on their ideas. Maybe bishop f3s are allowed right now, and he tunnel vision on the move e5. Why is this move a blunder? You tell me by stopping the video right now. Folks, it's a blunder because white is ignoring the loose bishop on g4, and this move also blocks the queen's access to g5 and allows a devastating check with queen g5, and black is winning the loose bishop on the next turn. Please look at this, folks. Right now, black had no threat of queen g5 because it was protected, but since white tunnel vision with the move e5, they did not ask themselves whether the opponent can give a check against their move. Just like in the first position, in a more complex way, the same question could have applied. As a result of my next move, am I allowing a devastating check for my opponent? That's always the first question when it comes to blunder checking your moves. More on that later on when I talk about the course structure. Okay? Also, notice loose pieces drop off principle. Loose pieces are always relevant when it comes to chess tactics. Here, white also ignore that they were having a loose bishop on g4. But if I give you this puzzle, it will be not a clean puzzle because yes, e5 is a blunder, but what's the alternative, right? You have so many good looking moves here for white. And again, that will be too much to ask for my students to find the very best move here for white. That's not the intent of this course of the blunder check, right? Then you'll get frustrated. Then you will get like, okay, what am I being tested in this course? Also, the difficulty level could not be arranged so easily as an author. This means I have to modify this position, right? Almost like a Plato's ideal world. I have to reach a much more ideal scenario to give you much more directed puzzle. And I will show you that final version as the homework position, folks. Here, black took on e5. Here comes my question. Please tell me a good move for white in this position, folks. Please apply the algorithm I show you today, those questions, and tell me the answer. There's only a single correct solution. It's a more complex version, but you can do it because you know that couple of ideas are blunders, but there's only a single correct solution that wins material for white in this position. And you already see the contours of how this position resembles the position I just showed you, right? I might have spent a couple of hours to modify that position to reach this position, folks. The entire process takes time, but to me, that's time well worth invested because I want my puzzles to have the highest possible quality because I know that they will lead to much more long-lasting learning for my students. If the material is too complex, if it's too messy, if there are multiple solutions, if there are details that don't really contribute to learning, then no learning takes place. You get frustrated, right? That's what we know from cognitive science of learning. People can easily overwhelm their working memories. So our puzzles, our questions should be clarified for our intent to be realized in the students' minds. That's why I'm modifying my puzzles, folks. Please give me the answer, also telling me what are the alternatives and why are they blunders in this position for white. Don't directly jump to conclusions. Try to calculate a little bit deeper. Be a scientist. Sometimes you see a good idea, but you don't refute it. Wishful thinking kicks in and you blunder. Blunder check is arguably one of the most important chess thought processes, and I will fix this with my next course. I have high ambitions, folks. I already have great feedback from my alpha and beta testers of this course. You will raise your floor. You will not completely stop making blunders, but the numbers will reduce. That's my hope with this course, folks. Even if you find the correct solution here, I want you to also analyze moves like rook e3 or rook e1 in this position, okay? So just to be reaching the full conclusion, if I, for example, ask you, hey, does it work for white, the move rook e3, because it looks like you're pinning the bishop, or even rook e1, right? It looks like, well, first pin and then win, okay? So even if you find the correct move, let's say, I also want you to analyze these two moves and tell me whether they are blunders, or if they are blunders, please tell me why they are blunders. Finally, the main strength of this course is I also force you to go through and go beyond the first impulses and using concrete calculation like this to make certain ideas work. Very short calculations, just like my fundamental calculation skills course. I also structure it this way. Why? Because otherwise it will be such an easy course, right? You will just give up on these ideas directly because it just looks like a pawn fork. Then you would become lazy. You would stop looking a little bit beyond the surface features and you would stop calculating a couple of moves deeper, just like we did here, right? Yes, it looks like a blunder, but then you see this knight d4 resource. That's why I structured the course this way, folks. You will never know whether it's an easy blunder that you can directly just refuse, or just like in a real game, you should also spend a little bit more time calculating a few moves deeper to make impossible moves work. And I will catch you on the next episode. Bye bye.